I want you to just imagine a scenario for a second here.
Okay, lay it on me.
Think about the AI tool you probably used this morning. Maybe you used it to draft a polite email to a client or like
Yeah.
brainstorm some ideas for a presentation.
Right, or just to summarize a really long, dense PDF so you wouldn't actually have to read the whole thing.
Exactly. It's this helpful, incredibly fast, very polite assistant. But now what happens when that exact same technology, the polite email writer, is suddenly put in charge of guarding the cyber vaults of your national bank?
Oh, wow.
Or
Yeah.
what if it's, suddenly running the administrative databases, the tax records, and the citizen services of an entire government?
I mean, that is a massive conceptual leap. We're talking about going from a personal convenience, like a tool you use to save maybe 10 minutes on a Tuesday, to a critical societal dependency.
Right.
And that leap, it just changes absolutely everything about how we need to view, regulate, and really interact with this technology. It completely rewrites the social contract.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is to thoroughly explore the observation records of Tommy Yoshida, also known in Japan as Yoshida Tsutomu.
Yeah, his work right now is just essential reading.
It really is. We're looking specifically at a series of essays he wrote documenting this exact transition. And what's really unique here is that we're drawing from both the Japan edition and the international edition of his work.
Right, because the international version isn't just, a literal word-for-word translation.
No, not at all. It's a complete reconstruction of his ideas for a global context, which really just proves that the phenomena he's observing, they aren't isolated to one region. They represent this fundamental, permanent shift in the global relationship between human society and artificial intelligence.
Yoshida is basically capturing a moment in time that most people are completely sleeping through. I mean, we're living in an era where the underlying architecture of civilization is being swapped out.
Swapped out right under our feet.
Exactly. And his essays force us to stop and actually look at the blueprints of what is being built.
So before we jump in, let's just set some ground rules for you, the listener. This deep dive is not a tech review. We aren't going to teach you how to write better prompts or evaluate which AI has the best interface.
And we're definitely not here to debate the underlying math or, the basic ethics of machine learning.
Right. The goal today is actually to dwell in what Yoshida calls unfinished thoughts. We're going to explore a massive, totally unresolved concept known as information governance.
Which is so crucial right now.
It is. Because society is in this deep transition period. The old rules don't apply. The new rules haven't been written. And frankly, it is perfectly okay for us to leave some questions open today rather than trying to, force a neat, tidy conclusion.
I love that. Embracing the unfinished thoughts.
Okay, let's unpack this. To understand where we are going, we really first have to understand how our very definition of AI has just completely shifted under our noses.
Yeah, if we look back just a few years to when generative AI first exploded into public awareness, the collective understanding was essentially what you described in your opening.
Just a handy assistant.
Exactly. The primary perception was that AI was a personal tool. You give a prompt, it gives you text or an image. The interaction was highly transactional.
And localized, right.
Very localized. You asked a question, it provided an answer, and then it essentially went to sleep until you asked it something else.
But Yoshida argues that this perception is dangerously outdated now.
Yeah.
We are moving from the era of generative AI to what he calls high precision or advanced AI. And this new tier is just fundamentally different in its mechanics.
How so? I mean, for the listener who want to just see it as a smarter chatbot.
Well, it isn't just waiting around for a prompt anymore. This advanced AI is reading massive, basically incomprehensible volumes of documents simultaneously. It's engaging in long-term reasoning, maintaining context over extended periods.
Right, it's not just generating, it's actively fixing complex program code.
Exactly. It's autonomously finding system vulnerabilities and performing these complex tasks on its own. The shift here is from an AI that just answers questions to an AI that is participating in actual work.
What's fascinating here is that distinction between answering a question and actually participating in the work.
Yeah.
That's the invisible line we've crossed.
Yeah.
When an AI is finding a vulnerability in a software system and then writing the patch to fix it, it is no longer a reference library. It's an active participant in the operational security of that system.
It kind of feels like we hired an intern to answer the phones, and while we weren't looking, they just started running the entire IT and accounting departments.
That is a terrifyingly accurate analogy.
But wait, let me push back a little here. Isn't it all just, autocomplete on steroids? Whether it's predicting the next word in a poem or the next line of Python code to fix a bug, It's still just a statistical probability engine predicting the most likely next token.
I hear that argument a lot.
Right. Like, aren't we just splitting hairs over processing power? I
Yeah.
feel like we might be personifying a very fast calculator by saying it participates in work.
It's super easy to dismiss it as just a faster calculator, but the structural shift here is really about agency and continuous runtime.
Ages.
Yeah. A chatbot forgets you when you close the browser window.
Yeah.
But an advanced AI system operates in an agentic loop. You give it a high-level goal like, say, ensure this banking network is secure from intrusions.
Okay.
The AI then autonomously breaks that goal down into hundreds of smaller tasks. It's constantly monitoring network traffic, reasoning through anomalies, deciding which anomalies are actual threats, and deploying countermeasures.
And doing all that without a human ever hitting enter on a prompt.
Precisely. The agency is shifted. The AI is making operational, real-time decisions embedded directly into a workflow.
That autonomous workflow is honestly terrifying if it's just theoretical. But what happens when a country actually hands over the keys?
Well, we don't have to guess.
Right, because if we want to see where this autonomous work is actually happening, we don't have to look to science fiction. We just have to look at Japan. Yoshida uses Japan as this prime case study of AI graduating from a consumer tool to the actual backbone of a nation.
The timeline Yoshida lays out regarding Japan is incredibly telling. It serves as a perfect microcosm for this global transition, mainly because it moves at such an aggressive, deliberate pace.
Let's trace that timeline for a second because the escalation is kind of wild. In 2023, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman met with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida.
Which was a huge deal.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a photo op. That meeting directly led to OpenAI establishing its first Asian hub in Tokyo. They specifically enhanced the Japanese language models, and crucially, they began collaborating with the digital agency to bring generative AI into administrative government environments.
We really have to pause and consider what that actually means mechanically.
Break that down.
When OpenAI collaborates with a government's digital agency, they aren't just giving bureaucrats a faster way to write memos. They're integrating AI into the logic of administrative systems.
So it's handling real operations.
Yes, the AI begins processing citizen queries, structuring legacy bureaucratic data, and basically managing the invisible day-to-day friction of running a government.
And it didn't stop at administrative efficiency either. By 2026, the conversation escalated directly to national security. Yoshida points out that Google's advanced AI technologies entered into active discussions with Japanese financial authorities.
And again, the goal wasn't just to make banking apps load faster on your phone.
No, the goal was to use AI to detect vulnerabilities and actively repair financial systems.
To really understand the magnitude of that, you have to understand how legacy financial systems operate. I mean, many global banks run on software written decades ago.
Like ancient languages like COBOL.
Exactly.
Yeah.
COBOL. For a human engineering team to find a structural weakness in millions of lines of that legacy code, it requires linear manual auditing. It takes years.
Right.
But Google's advanced AI doesn't read linearly. It uses multi-dimensional pattern recognition. It basically ingests the entire architecture of the bank software simultaneously.
Spotting things a human would never see.
Right? Spotting a vulnerability that just wouldn't make sense to a human eye until it was way too late. And then it autonomously generates the highly specific patch required to fix it.
And then on top of Google and OpenAI, you have Anthropic. Most people know them for their Claude models, which are historically great at, like, nuanced writing.
Yeah, very conversational.
But suddenly, Anthropic is being heavily scrutinized and integrated by banks and government agencies because their highly advanced reasoning models are seen as essential tools to defend against sophisticated cyber attacks.
Which makes sense when you look at how traditional cybersecurity works. It's essentially heuristic.
Meaning what exactly?
It checks incoming traffic against a known list of bad signatures, kind of like a bouncer checking IDs against a ban list at a club door.
Ah, okay.
But modern cyber attacks are dynamic. They don't have known signatures. Anthropic's advanced models analyze the behavior and the intent of code acting inside a network.
So it's reasoning in real time.
Exactly. The AI reasons through whether a massive data transfer at 3 in the morning is a clever, never-before-seen hack or just an authorized, albeit unusually scheduled, system backup.
Yeah.
It applies continuous reasoning to network defense.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. OpenAI, Google, Anthropic. These are three of the most fiercely competitive tech giants on the planet.
Absolutely.
They were racing against each other, poaching each other's engineers, competing for compute power. Yet, when you look at their trajectory in Japan, their separate, fiercely competitive paths all point to the exact same outcome.
The infrastructure layer.
Yes, they are all racing to become the foundational infrastructure of a nation. They aren't just selling software apps anymore. They are competing to become the very pipes through which society operates. Administrative services, financial security, national cyber defense.
They're quite literally becoming the operating system for society.
I mean, think about the concrete foundation of a massive bank building. You never look at it, you never even think about it. But it holds up everything. And if it cracks, the whole building comes down.
Right.
Yoshida is saying AI is becoming that concrete. It's no longer just a shiny app on your smartphone. It is the invisible structural integrity of the national diet, the taxation system, and the banking sector.
Which brings us to the absolute core of Yoshida's observation. If AI is now the infrastructure running the government and the banks, then the most urgent conversation we need to be having is no longer about the technology itself.
So what is it about?
The conversation has to pivot entirely to trust and accountability.
And that pivot is what Yoshida calls information governance. Because once an AI is embedded in your government services or your healthcare systems, the crucial question completely flips, doesn't it?
It flips on its head. We've spent the last few years obsessively asking, what can AI do?
Right.
But the moment it becomes infrastructure, the only question that matters is, who remains accountable when AI participates in important decisions?
Information governance in this new era requires us to ask incredibly difficult structural questions that we, frankly, currently do not have the answers for.
Not even close.
Like, if an AI system flags a complex financial transaction as fraudulent and freezes a major corporation's assets, causing millions in damages, who is responsible if the AI is wrong?
Yeah, who do you sue? The bank, the AI developer.
Exactly. What specific historical data did that AI learn from to make that determination? What are the underlying mathematical criteria for its decisions? And most importantly, how do we maintain meaningful human oversight when the machine is processing millions of data points a second?
Yoshida is very, very firm on this point. He states that technology can analyze and it can recommend, but it absolutely cannot assume responsibility.
But hold on, let me play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
If Anthropic's advanced reasoning model is demonstrably faster and more accurate at stopping a complex hack than a human team, aren't we making ourselves less safe by putting a slow human bureaucracy in the middle of it?
That's a common argument.
Right. If the machine is statistically better at the job, just let the machine execute the job. Why bottleneck a superior high-speed defense system with human governance?
This raises an important question, but you are falling into the exact trap that many major organizations are falling into right now. You are conflating execution with judgment.
Explain that.
It is absolutely true that the AI is mathematically faster at finding the pattern of a cyber attack. But there's a massive difference between providing mathematical options and possessing human context.
Okay, so it's an optimization problem. The AI is told to stop the hack. And mathematically, the fastest way to achieve a 0% hack rate is to sever the bank's connection to the internet entirely.
Okay.
It solves the equation perfectly, but it's totally blind to the collateral damage of shutting down a national economy. It lacks the context.
Precisely. Let's just trace the mechanics of that scenario you just brought up. The AI detects an anomaly. It determines the most mathematically efficient way to stop the breach is to take the banking system offline, freezing every single transaction in the country.
Fast, effective, devastating.
Right. The AI has successfully solved the math problem. But the AI cannot understand why shutting down a nation's economy for 2 hours causes catastrophic human suffering.
It doesn't get it.
It doesn't understand the panic of a parent whose card is declined at a pharmacy when they're trying to buy medicine for a sick child. It doesn't understand the cascading failure of supply chains that rely on just-in-time payments.
So it can find the pattern, but it cannot understand why a particular choice actually matters to human society.
Exactly. It does not hold values.
The AI optimizes strictly for the metric it was given, but it has absolutely no concept of the reality outside of that metric. So it cannot assume responsibility because responsibility inherently requires an understanding of consequences.
Responsibility is an inherently human burden. You cannot fire an algorithm.
Right.
You cannot put a neural network in jail.
Yeah.
Responsibility requires a conscious entity that can actually bear the weight of a decision's impact on other conscious entities.
And I guess that is why we are seeing the first messy drafts of information governance being sketched out right now. Concepts like algorithmic auditing, where third parties test the models for hidden biases in their logic.
Yeah, or the implementation of mandatory human-in-the-loop kill switches, ensuring that while the AI can flag a threat at light speed, a human being must physically authorize the catastrophic countermeasure.
Which really leads us to the most lingering, unfinished thought of this entire deep dive. Since AI physically cannot hold values or take responsibility, what exactly are humans supposed to do in this new era?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because the dominant fear, like the headline we see every single day, is that AI is going to replace people. But Yoshida argues something much more nuanced. He argues that human responsibility isn't disappearing at all, it's just changing.
It is a fundamental shift in our job description as a species. I mean, think about it. For all of human history, our primary economic value was tied to producing the answers.
We were the calculators.
We were the ones linearly calculating the math, manually writing the lines of code, painstakingly drafting the reports. We were responsible for the what.
And now the advanced AI is doing the what. It's doing it faster, it's doing it autonomously, and honestly, in many cases involving vast amounts of data, it is doing it way better than we ever could.
So the human role must shift from producing the answers to explaining the reasoning and the values behind the choices. We have to become the masters of the why.
Give me an example of what that looks like in practice.
Well, if the AI generates 3 different ways to secure a financial system, say one that is highly secure but freezes user accounts frequently, one that is less secure but totally frictionless for the user, and one that requires a complete, expensive overhaul of the bank's hardware, it is the human who must step in.
Right. The AI just gives the options.
The human must look at those 3 mathematical options and decide which one aligns best with our societal values, our ethical standards, and our tolerance for risk.
So, what does this all mean? If we aren't producing the raw work anymore, what is the day-to-day reality of a knowledge worker actually going to look like in 10 years?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it means humans must become the ultimate guardians of context.
Guardians of context, I like that.
As AI's capabilities expand and it integrates deeper into the concrete of our cities, our administrative systems, and our infrastructure, our uniquely human job is to provide judgment. We have to shoulder the accountability.
We aren't the calculators anymore. We are the judges.
Exactly. And as Yoshida heavily emphasizes, we do not have a perfect system for this yet. We are in a transition. We are still trying to figure out how to structure this kind of governance on a global scale.
Which is exactly why his work requires both a Japan edition and an international edition. The underlying technology shift is universal, but how different cultures choose to govern that intelligence will require entirely new frameworks.
Different cultures have different values, so the why is going to look different depending on where you are.
And that brings us full circle. We've gone on quite a journey today. We started by looking at AI as just a clever chatbot, a generative tool that waits for you to ask it to write an email.
A simpler time.
Really, though. But through Yoshida's observations, especially looking at the reality on the ground in Japan, we've seen the mechanics of how advanced AI is morphing into the digital concrete of our society.
We've seen how continuous runtime and agentic logic allow it to run administrative systems, secure financial networks, and basically manage national defense autonomously.
And because it has become infrastructure, the conversation has to evolve. We have to stop obsessing over the technological novelty of what the machine can generate and start building robust frameworks for information governance.
We have to recognize that while AI can offer mathematically optimal choices, it can never ever bear the moral weight of a decision.
Which leaves us with a lot of open questions. And as we established right at the start, that is entirely intentional. The technology is currently evolving significantly faster than our rules for it.
We are definitely living in Yoshida's unfinished thoughts.
We are right in the middle of the transition period. But I want to leave you with his ultimate question for the next decade. It's a question that completely reorients how we should be thinking about the future, both globally and in our own lives.
It's a heavy one.
It is. The most important question we face is not how intelligent will AI become? The real question is, how should humans govern intelligence that becomes part of society itself?
It is arguably the defining challenge of our time. It forces us to look in the mirror to understand our own values instead of just, staring at the screen, marveling at the technology.
So tomorrow morning, when you open up your laptop and you log into whatever AI tool you use to start your day, the polite email writer, the brainstorming assistant, I want you to think about those bank vaults. I want you to think about the infrastructure running your city. And I want you to ask yourself, In your own life and in your own work, are you just passively accepting the AI's what, or are you still firmly, consciously in control of the why? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.